it was used to store tobacco, and that lasted for a number of years until the British and the Portuguese together started postal facilities, especially the telegraphic and so on facilities. But the name Tobacco Square would cover stuck and would cover an area that's all facing the post office. So that area in between the Mint House and the post office and the Chapel of Saint Thome, all that area was the Tobacco Square. So is one of the earliest squares that was there, public squares that was there in the city. So at a certain point of time, it ceased to be known as Tobacco Square, and came to be known as Largo dos Correios. Correios means post office. If you survey the city of Panjim, 18th of June Road, the Dadavaidia Road, the other road in between, there has been no change in the alignment or layout of the roads. The roads have remained the same, and what has changed is the pattern of construction along the roads.
This house has got quite a lot of history. It functioned as the mint of Portuguese regime between 1834 and 1842. Prior to that, the mint was in Old Goa, what today we call Old Goa. At that time was called Siddhartha Goa, and for various reasons it was shifted here, and in many ways it's one of the first few buildings that came to Panjim. After that it became the public treasury, the Fazenda Pública. You know, whenever we say Fazenda, we always think of the building opposite the Secretariat, but this once housed the Fazenda as well.
And Mamai Kamat's house, which is really, you would say, in those days, a village within a village, because there are quite a number of family branches that cohabit the area. So it's a very old structure, and there are sketches by in Lopes Benz's book that indicate that really the water used to come very close to the house.
Carnival was so much fun. You know, today you think only of the parade and the dances. That's all it was. But in those days there were these cocottes. Making these missiles filled with powder that you could fling at other people. Very harmless. It was very harmless fun. Color, buckets of water. We used to have fights. It was the main fight used to be between Saint Thome and Fontainhas. And it's a debate whoever won. But then both sides would join and we would go and raid other people.
Massano da Amorim was an official school which now houses the Collectorate of Goa near Central Library. I studied there up to second grau, means primeiro grau and second grau were two elementary courses. As soon as I passed second grau, I joined Lyceum on the top, the big buildings which you see on the top. There we had a very good studies because Portuguese studies very solid, with good background of languages, history, science, and especially on drawings.
Lyceum, which was started in around 1854, was functioning from that main police headquarters complex, the Central Library, from that wing. And as the number of students increased, they had to shift it add another room and so on, so that one professor commented it's enough for the students to cross the road and they are in the market, Panjim market. So at that time they decided, why not shift to Altinho, and they had a building ready made. They purchased the building from Santa Casa, and Lyceum started functioning there around 1930 or so. The staircases in Panjim, really quite a number of them, and they serve the purpose of allowing people staying up the hillock to come down, or the staircase, main staircase, which is by halfway along Cordoiter, which today enables people to go up and down, and used to be very helpful to the students and teachers to go to Lyceum. But Panjim has maybe over a dozen staircases. High Court in the present setup has occupied 4 out of the 5 buildings that belong to Lyceum. The bench of Bombay High Court now functions from the Lyceum buildings. From those Lyceum buildings. Now, interestingly, is there was a time during the early Portuguese period when Bombay was under the Goa High Court, and today Goa is under the Bombay High Court.
Original name, the Campal name has come after the Camp de Manuel Portugal e Castro. The short form is Campal. You know, they could not say the full thing, so they made it short, Campal.
Dom Manuel Portugal Castro in 1828 to 1832 did a commendable work. What he did, you know, whole area right from present bazaar market up to Miramar, he leveled. It was large dunes, sand dunes, marshy places, and all he leveled that and built. But he was a very, very far-sighted man. He knew that during monsoon waters had to go somewhere. Then he built 2 or 3 rivulets. One rivulet you must be knowing, behind the house of behind Inox. One that was a very large, going inside. There is a lot of noise in these days that they are cleaning that, something like that. So that whole thing was leaked, and there was another outlet in this Oria road, which unfortunately they closed, and flooding which takes place is due to that nonsense. So he did so much ecological balance. He created ecological balance in that area, and which paved the way for future construction plots for construction.
Many eminent people began to live in Panjim. Campal area began to develop. So many houses in Campal. Campal today is a heritage house area. And next to Campal, you know, there is a monument that is just opposite Kala Academy. Have you seen a monument that that is Prince Henry the Navigator monument? Okay, it was built in 1960 to commemorate that 1460 Prince Henry the Navigator was born and all those, and he opened the school of navigation. That's why the Portuguese could come, sail and explore the seas. The original name of Miramar is Pidduc. During pre-Portuguese time, the Gaudas used to wear that bead, it's called Pidduc. And then during the Portuguese time, it came to be known as Gaspar Dias. It was not called Miramar, it was called Gaspar Dias. And Gaspar Dias was a Portuguese nobleman who was in charge of the whole area, where our college is there and all this beach area. He was owning that land. Now, there was a fort which was constructed there, where the Maruti temple is there. next to our college, there was a fort, and that was called Fortaleza de Gaspar Diaz, and he was the commandant of the fort. And now nothing remains of the fort. Interesting story, how it came to be known as Miramar. Mira means view, and mar means sea in Portuguese. Miramar means view of the sea. And there was this person called Luciano Roncon, and he had built a small hotel on the beach, and he wanted to name his hotel. So as he was taking a stroll down the beach, suddenly he got a flash in his mind, and he decided to call it Miramar. It's called view of the sea, because the hotel was built on the beach, and it was getting the view of the sea. So it was named as Miramar. So the beach also came to be known as Miramar.
The expansion of Panjim westwards took place after the governor shifted his residence from Adil Shah's palace to Kaburaj Nivas, that's Palace do Cabo. So that encouraged them to build a road that connects Panjim to Dona Paula. So the road that is the Santinês Tonka road. You have that pillar, which is the Pilar de Tonka, which was salvaged fairly recently.
Now, Dona Paula has an interesting story. Okay. Now, normally people believe that there is a person called Dona and there is a person called Paulo, and they were in love. And because Dona was a Portuguese girl and Paulo was a local fisherman, and they were in love, they could not get married because there was opposition to their marriage, because Paulo was a poor man, and they both of them went on the cliff and committed suicide, and then they are frozen in time in those twin statues. All this is not true. Okay, these are humbug stories created by the tourist guides. Now what is true is, there was one lady, Portuguese woman called, now in Portuguese the senior women were addressed as Dona. Okay, her name is Paula Amaral de Menezes Antonio Sotomayor. She was the daughter of the Portuguese governor of Jaffnapatam in Sri Lanka. Okay, then she married this man, and then she arrived in Goa in 1644, and then she died on 21st December 1682, and she lies buried in the Cabo Chapel. There's a tombstone dedicated to her. Because they owned the entire property, the villagers named Oddavel village as Dona Paula after her. If you go by history, then you have to strictly go to the facts. Okay, and her stone inscription which is there in the Cabo Chapel is an important evidence that there was a woman called Dona Paula, that she married Don Antonio. Her husband's name is there. She died on 21st December 1682. All that is there. So people say that there was a love between Gaspar Diaz and Dona Paula. Cannot be, because Gaspar Diaz belonged to 16th century, Dona Paula belonged to 17th century. You cannot have love between people of 2 centuries. It's very funny. So all these stories are there. It's okay. They are interesting stories for passing our time. Those 2 statues are done in memory of Mr. and Mrs. Robert Knox. Robert Knox was an American senator who had made a will that all the beautiful places in the world should have a statue in his and his wife's memory. When you go to Dona Paula, there is a cemetery which is called a British cemetery, and it's very interesting why it is called British cemetery. All over Goa you have cemeteries which are either built during the Portuguese period or later period. Okay, between 1799 to 1813, okay, British soldiers were stationed in Goa. Now those soldiers who died during those skirmishes between the Portuguese and they are all buried, they lie buried only in that cemetery. And whoever came from Britain to Goa, or whoever lived in Goa who was a Briton, was buried only in that cemetery. Okay, So till today you will find those tombs. So it's a very interesting. It is abetting the Kabo Rajnivas. The Kabo Rajnivas actually is today the governor's residence. Has been the governor's residence since 1918. So that is an important landmark in Donapala. That was a fort which was constructed by the Portuguese government as a defense. You know, there was a Marmagua harbor in the waters of the Arabian Sea, Mandavi rivers. So they needed a defensive barrier. 1918, the Portuguese viceroy began to live there, and it became an administrative seat. Okay, the administrative seat, of course, was the Adil Shah's palace in Panjim, and the residence was there. So whenever there was important meetings and all, they were held in Cabo, and then it has been the governor's residence since then.
First of all, we're not planning. We're just ad hocly adding on and building and constructing more. So first we need to plan properly with some kind of a vision, and secondly we need to plan for people, because cities are for people. And I think Panjim, the scale Panjim is, it's a people's place. If you go through Panjim at night, you see we have wide roads. It's not that our road network is a problem, it's our traffic management which is a problem. It's not that we cannot handle the garbage, it's we have no systems in place. So I think what we really have to get down is to realize when you talk about growth, you talk about development, it's not about building and more building or more construction. It's about improving the quality of life. There were open spaces which were used by the people. They were the lungs of the city. People came out during the day, in the evenings, and they became the breathing places for the city. Now, how are we handling them? Let's take the municipal garden, for instance. How was the municipal garden used traditionally, historically? By people. People who lived around, children who lived around, they came and played there, people sat there, had their lunch there. You had a bandstand where you had functions and events in the evening. It was a people's place, an open space, a garden for the people. Panjim is a walking city, and we should look more at people now and less at vehicles, because only then when Panjim can live again.
Every place in Panjim was within walking distance. Now, what has happened with the passage of years is that most parts of Panjim have been commercialized, so that you see shops and commercial establishments all over. In the buildings, almost 99% of the new buildings, the ground floor should have been left as parking area. No, the ground floor is being used as shopping space.
Panjim was basically a very well-planned city, but unfortunately, by the day, it is deteriorating. Everybody can see that happening.
Panjim is building fast, very fast, for the worse.
As compared to the older times, it was more space, less people. Now it is more people, less space.
One of the keys is how successfully we preserve our heritage. So, I mean, everybody knows that Goa as a whole, and Panjim specifically, also has a very rich architectural and not just built heritage, but even natural heritage. It's already there. Of course, it's also going at a quite an alarming rate in some cases, but by and large, there's a lot of it still there to be preserved.
What is conservation? There are certain areas which bear a certain tinge of what you call it, of character. This character should not be lost, because you know this part is part of our history. So we introduced this system of conservation by framing laws. Not a single house in